Yuri? ¿Qué pasó, Yuri? Yuri or, because we have, what's your, Elvia?
You're already calling me out this early.
Pues, I mean, I call you Yuri, and when you call me on your phone, it says Elvia.
Wow. You just, ya me descubriste.
Am I not supposed to say that?
You're not, but it's fine.
It's just supposed to be Yuri then.
It is.
Pero pues cada vez que le hablas a alguien, te descubres.
I know. I don't know why it changed. There's some type of new feature and it's changing it, but there's a long story behind that.
Okay.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
So back in 2007, I was in my second radio job, and I had a contract, my first real contract, my first big girl career.
Yeah.
And my boss said, your name is horrible. ¿Estás bien? Ese nombre de Elvia está feo.
Who was that boss?
I don't know if I can call him out.
Brasileño.
I was working for Univision Radio at the time, and Mr. Arnulfo Ramirez.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I've met him. Because when I was there, it was Rogelio Boteo Rios and Hugo de la Cruz and all those guys.
I think
that was
he
in the
came after.
90s.
He came after.
Yeah, 2007. Arnulfo. Okay.
Yeah, so...
so you go, no, Elvia no. No, Elvia no.
Well, there's a middle name to it, which is even worse.
Okay.
Elvia Esmeralda.
Esmeralda.
Gonzalez.
Well, that's not a bad name.
Well, for the radio industry...
Ahorita pegará.
Right.
Como está la música que está pegando ahorita. Shit, yeah.
So Arnulfo tells me, I don't know, Elvia Esmeralda Gonzalez as a radio personality for a pop station, right? It's just too strong. It's almost like that tía. Vamos a hablarle a la tía Elvia, la que nos vende los tamales.
Sí.
La tía Elvia.
Okay.
So he just felt it was a very strong name for radio. So he said, nobody's going to remember that name.
It wasn't celebrity-like.
It wasn't catchy. Elvia Esmeralda Gonzalez just doesn't go with what we're trying to portray here. So there was a reality show back in the day called La Academia.
I remember
there was
that.
This girl called Yuridia.
Oh,
right? And everybody was always like, oh my God, you look so much like Yuridia, Yuri. So then, well, why don't we just use that?
Chavala back then,
oh, yeah, I was a kid. Well, yeah. Well, let's just use Yuri. It's shorter, it's easier, it's fresh, it's way better than Elvia Esmeralda Gonzalez, and let's just use Yuri. So I've been carrying that name, Yuri, in every job after that because that's all I've done. I've just done media.
No, pues, I mean, you stick with your professional name.
I was like, dude, am I going to sign a contract? I don't care what you name me. Where do I sign?
Yeah.
And so that's all.
Well, I've been there, but they called me Jungle Jim. So no te agüites, Yuri.
No.
I was like 1990. I went from KIWW. They let me go y pues me hablaron de una estación ahí en Silla del Foy's in Mission, una estación chiquita que se llamaba
Foy's.
Next to Foy's. It was a little office space. Y ahí estaba una radio station, KITM Superstar 105.5. Y llegué allí, pues I was rock and roll James since 1986, since I was in the clubs. Y me dice el boss ahí, Raúl Hernández, oye, cuñado, because I had long hair and all that shit. I was a rocker, Dice, oye, cuñado, desde hoy en día ya no eres rock and roll James, eres Jungle Jim. And I was like, okay, whatever, where do I sign?
Exactly.
I need a job, yeah.
Exactly, same thing. I needed the job. I don't care what you name me. But, it really, I guess it's just worked out. Every other job I've had in media, I've just used Yuri. And then even in news, I just use Yuri. And now with what I'm currently doing in city government, it's Yuri. So you just me descubriste al aire. Como
it's interesting because like what you do, public information officer for the city of Pharr.
It sounds very fancy.
I know. Well, it's the one that has to go out in front of the cameras and give bad news or good news, right? Or try to say it in between so it won't be too bad. So you have to figure out a way to make it sound great. But I do notice that a lot of former radio people and television people end up in those positions in cities. Yeah, so that's probably how you kind of like. Well, first of all, you're from Stark County, right?
Yes, sir. Go Rattlers, class of 2005.
Condado Estrella.
Oh, yeah, we just did our 20-year class reunion, which was amazing. I don't hear a lot of people say, no, we really enjoyed our 20-year class reunion.
What was so amazing about it?
Oh, my God, just so many people coming together. And it was an amazing party. Shout out to the committee, because it takes a strong committee to say, you know what, it's been 20 years, but we're still committed to, getting together every other month, everything. I mean, we had music, catering, linens, photo ops. I mean, we had an entire agenda. It was just amazing.
And it's crazy because a lot of times salen peleados in esas organizations, those committees, too many chiefs and not enough Indians. A uno le gusta, especially when it comes to the music and all that stuff,
I think
no?
So. But I think the smaller the town, the closer it is. I mean, I grew up with one high school. Now there's new, campuses.
Yeah.
But it's the same people that, you grew up with.
See? And
But it was awesome.
so when you were going to school there, were you real talkative in school and stuff like
Dude,
that? Dude,
I was the kid with the good grades, and then
que nunca se cae la boca.
Yeah, but the good grades, and then, we're going to have to call in your parents because you're not letting the other students finish their work, and you're distracting them. And I remember a teacher saying, I'm glad you're out of your shell, and you're very vocal, but you need to let the other students finish their work. And But yeah, I was the typical theater kid, and
Sí.
I was
Querías toda la atención.
and doing the pep rallies, and
Yeah, we're the ones that always end up in radio. And
éramos
stuff
los
like
que éramos esos los desmadrocillos, ¿verdad?
If you're a class clown, you're going to end up doing something. That's what I was. But girls are a little more outgoing, and they.
Yeah, I think everybody has, and you can see it with kids, right? If they're really into medicine or scientists, or the kid that's going to be, moving to Hollywood because he wants to be an actor.
Y el flonque también. ¿Sabes quién va a ser el flonque?
También.
And you know what? I was like the least likely to succeed from all my class. And pues, I got out a little early.
You're doing great things.
Pues es que no dejo caer la bandera, you know what I mean?
True.
Tengo que darle chingazos. I like to work and I like to create and I like to do
That's true.
My ADHD won't let me sit down and do nothing. You know what I mean?
I'm the same way.
See?
I'm the same way. Yeah, I just got out of work. This is why I'm wearing this lavender suit.
Hey.
I was going to try to wear like a rock shirt, AC/DC, but time didn't allow.
So graduaste in 2005 de Rio Grande City and
Here we go, Houston.
¿Se fuiste para Houston?
Mira, te voy a decir lo que pasó. 2005, the valley's growing. The valley is, and you always hear that. We've been hearing that for years, right? But really, there is momentum happening in the Rio Grande Valley,
Big
right?
time, yeah.
2005, I knew that broadcasting or journalism or radio, this is what I wanted to do. But there wasn't too many opportunities back in the day, right? In 2005, you're either a nurse or a teacher or...
And there was one girl DJ in all the station.
¿Quién era?
It was like,
Era Bonnie.
Well, Bonnie was with us, and then the rock station had a girl. So every station had to have at least one girl. Except for like the top 40 station, you can have an extra girl there.
Right.
Pero most stations, and especially the Mexican regional, you have one woman, because it's machismos, los hombres ponen la música, you know what I mean? So
there was not a lot happening.
Yeah.
So I moved to Houston, and I'm like, there was a lot happening over there. I remember visiting family in Houston, and I remember just listening to all the radio stations, the formats, the radio personalities. I mean, just obsessed. When you're just a radio kid, you're just obsessed. You understand a lot of things. And I remember a spot or a commercial airing. They were trying to find board operators, right?
Okay, yeah.
And here I go. This is my shot at this, right? And I didn't care if I was doing
And what kind of music were they playing, or was it talk radio?
So this was like Cacucuca. This was through Liberman Broadcasting, and it was actually XO. It was a Spanish pop radio station.
Okay.
XO, la música de tu generación.
Andale.
It was
you
your
could do
Shakiras.
drops.
It was, right?
Yeah.
It was your Rakes, your Shakiras, your, Ricky Martin, Enrique Iglesias, that type of format.
Yeah.
And they were trying to find a couple of board operators. So you know what board operators are, right?
You just push buttons.
That's it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even do the time. I couldn't, I just making sure the logs or commercials are airing. Rock, my shift started at 12 midnight. I mean, but I didn't care. I was like, you know what? It's fine. I want to learn everything, and eventually I got an invite to be part of just, I guess, like the sidekick for the morning show.
Órale.
And really bad experiences there.
Really?
Terrible,
¿Por
man.
qué?
Terrible.
Oh, who were you in the mornings with?
I was the radio personality. He's now in California, but I I remember he was just a very controlling radio personality.
Así son los in the morning show. They got to keep it controlled, yeah.
And, this young girl from Rio Grande City,
¿Te querías a robar todo el show too? Okay.
No,
were you too?
actually, I was terrible. I was no confidence. It was just really bad, and it was Spanish too. So my Spanish was really bad, and I remember I couldn't take the him being so controlling. So one morning I took my headphones off and I was like, I'm out. And he said, pues si te vas. I'll say it in English. No one's ever going to hire you. You don't have any talent. You don't know anyone in Houston. And you're only here because I gave you this opportunity. So if you walk out of this radio booth, you're never going to land a job in media, ever.
He didn't want you to walk out of the booth.
And you know what? I walked out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I said, you know what? Enough is enough. This guy was just extremely...
asshole.
Yeah. And, a couple of hours later, I get a message from him saying, hey, we have a broadcast tonight. So please show up. Mm-hmm. Show up and let's just forget about what happened this morning. I never showed up. And a couple of months after that, Univision was doing the casting they needed a female voice in their new morning show.
And this is in Houston still?
This in Houston.
Okay.
This is a couple of months after, right? I left. So I showed up to the casting along with 8 other girls. And Arnulfo Ramirez offered the contract. He's who changed the name into Yuri.
Orale.
So very nerve-wracking, right? Because you're seeing other very talented young ladies there. And I was the first one to do the tryout. So you have all these ladies there. So then the second one goes and, you kind of get a feel for everyone. And I was the first one to go. So I was like, oh, my God. But yeah, I got a call a couple of days after that.
And then what happened? I mean, you started doing mornings, or you were sidekick?
Yes. I was working with Angel Basulto and Justin at that time, doing the morning show for still the same format, radio pop. Our studio next door was Raul Brindis, who was also doing really good at that time with
he became a
Estéreo Latino, doing really good. So I was working with all these guys, just people that had so much experience, in the radio industry, and you just learned so much. And I'm going to say this with all respect to radio personalities now, but I really feel that I worked in a time in radio where there was still a magic there. It was very different. It wasn't as controlled by corporate. And there was just so much freedom. We didn't have the Vox Pro where you were pre-recording all that BS.
That all ended around Facebook, when Facebook came in. Because you were able to create something on the radio and nobody could see it.
Rock, we were taking
Everybody
live calls.
was like,
we were taking live calls. Like, there's a magic that I can't explain when you go live versus pre-recorded.
It's organic.
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Even when you're speaking over an intro, you feel and you know when the lyrics are going to start. I don't know. It's weird.
The post.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even the delivery is different.
But some people never catch that. You have to have a certain, sense. Because, I've worked with DJs that never catch that onda, hitting the post and, editing the calls too close together that it sounds like a run-on sentence.
Right.
No, you got to make it sound conversational.
Right.
So, and they just never catch on. And you have to have that in you. And that's what you had.
Yeah. And I'm happy that I worked in radio in a time where social media wasn't a thing. I can't imagine what it's changed tremendously.
Well, like I was saying, Facebook really changed the magic of radio because people could see how the DJs were operating, because when you're listening to the radio and you don't see what they're doing, you're imagining everything in your brain. So they called it the theater of the mind.
The theater of the mind.
So I would make fake phone calls. I would make all kinds of creative little things. And people were over here, or if I had a woman, like if I had you on the show, I'd be describing you, and every man would be thinking of the woman they love the most.
Right.
The perfect woman for them, and every man has a different perfect woman. So that was the magic of radio. And then once Facebook came in, they started bringing in these phones and all that.
Everything.
It kind of killed it a bit.
Yeah, corporate has killed it a bit because, the sales department also has goals to meet. So now, they're incorporating all these other elements, right? They're incorporating the
digital.
Well, rock and roll, this guy is going to be doing X amount of mentions on his social media platforms because he has X amount of followers. So radio is still radio, but I feel that I'm blessed that I got to work in a time where it was so creative. Dude, we did the craziest promotions on air. We did some crazy stuff that I don't hear.
I don't know if you can push that stuff anymore.
Yeah, no.
You've got all that
There's
politically correct stuff going on.
There's a lot, yeah.
All it takes is one call. Like I mentioned a certain phrase, a title of a certain body of water on the station that I work on, not in the 956 in another area of Texas. And I got an immediate email like, I can't say that. I'm like, it's not a bad word. I mean, that's what's going on. It's current events, but it's polarized and all that. I'm like, oh man, I mean, it's sad when you're even comedians. I just saw an interview with Damon Wayans, how people that aren't comedians are talking about what comedians can say and not say. Hey, if you don't know what a comedian is or how a comedian works, then how can you decide what they should be doing? And same thing with DJs and radio personalities. It's interesting that we became from radio personalities, it turned into influencers now.
Right.
Right? Isn't that crazy? Because now it's the magic of the camera. But
yeah, it's social media has been a game changer, but in a way, Rock, going back to, I really enjoyed my time in radio before it became too corporate. Something that I struggled with in radio too was businesses or clients were always pushing to try to make me look a lot, I don't know, hotter, sexier. And I hated that. I was like, dude, this is radio. Now, this is before social media, right? It's not like, oh, you're on social media. There's, you have to promote this service, this product, this business, and, you have to show less. You have to look a certain way. I was like, this is radio.
They wanted you to look hotter. And
I was like,
me too. I'm just kidding.
I was like, what are you talking about? This is radio. I would show up, in my Vans, my Converse, and it's changed now. I mean, these ladies have to really sell, if you know what I mean. So again, I think I worked in radio when it was the right time for me, right? And then I transitioned into news.
And that's like, okay, so you were in radio in Houston. As soon as you graduated in 2005, you headed to Houston. You started working at a radio station there with Arnulfo. And then,
no, before the guy that remember, he kicked me out.
Yeah, but you really started your whole thing with Arnulfo.
And Univision.
And then how long did you do that?
It was a couple of years. I'm going to say it was like 5 years.
Okay.
And then.
So about 2011, 2012?
Yes. And then he is a mentor to me till this day, Fernando Perez. Fernando Perez recruited me for CBS Radio, for KLOL, which used to be the old rock station in Houston.
I remember.
It was purchased by CBS, and it became Mega 101. It used to be Latino and Proud, remember? Mega 101, Latino and Proud, and then it shifted into Mega 101, Número Uno en Éxitos.
How was it when it turned from rock to Mexican? I mean, I'm sure a lot of rockers were upset in Houston because that was like a legacy rock station.
Well, it became a reggaeton station.
Okay, before or what?
It went from KLOL to a reggaeton station. Yes, man, your rocker community.
I bet.
Dude, they were pissed.
I bet.
Off. Still to this day.
They
still have the original KLOL, like the rock station. I believe it was like red letters.
It was a classic radio station. They played. Was. I used to hook up my my television antenna to my radio in my bedroom when I was a kid to catch C101 and catch KLOL because we had a rock station here which was 99.5. And but they weren't playing the stuff they were playing over there that I liked. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But
big shift. But there was also some type of shift happening in obviously the demographics and consumer behavior and everything was changing. So
Yeah, the Latinos were taking over.
Well, you put it in simplest terms.
Yeah.
So, no, hombre, fue un éxito
CBS.
cuando comenzó Mega 101 Latino and Proud. That was the original slogan. I came when it was Mega 101 Número en Éxitos under Fernando Perez. Dude, this guy was just the best radio program director I've ever met. And he was just amazing. He's a great mentor. He was really good at doing air checks. You would meet with him, every week.
Listen to you and give you some,
Yeah, and
constructive criticism.
it was amazing. Genius. He's a genius. He's done amazing with his career. So after that, I shifted into news. So how do you go from entertainment to something serious, right?
Well, that's great because you get to learn everything. You know what I mean? You're trying a bit of everything. And but were you kind of scared when they told you that you were going to do news or what? Because you have to be a lot more. You can't screw up on words, and you have to be like kind of perfect.
Right. So I had the foundation of just kind of like lifestyle TV, which is like softer stories, like covering, I don't know, a museum.
The cops saved the cat from the tree.
Even easier stories like covering a festival or a museum or go visit a restaurant and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Those are cool.
And those are cool because your radio personality is still kind of showcasing in those stories, so it's easy.
Yeah.
But when I moved to the Valley and I started working for Channel 5, breaking news, breaking stories. That used to be the original slogan under Jenny Martinez, by the way.
Okay, wow.
Now it's the Valley's news station, right? But it used to be breaking news, breaking stories.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't know how to be serious. Like, you go from like entertainment, right? From like everything is like fun, morning show. I mean, the dynamics.
The energy's different.
Yeah, to like covering like a trial or a murder or
a death, car accident,
a major hurricane or the aftermath, flooding, people, Yeah,
you have to like master the look when you're saying the story depending on the severity of it. And
so everyone's like, you look so mad on TV. Why you're, I'm like, am I total shift from being like a clown? I still have that in me, but.
Well, why did you end up coming from Houston? Did they offer you a job down here and you said, I'm out or what?
A boy broke my heart.
Si
me estás oyendo, inútil.
Rata con dos patas. But so you met a guy up there. You were hooked up and stuff.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, I had my my boyfriend of many years, and that didn't end well. So anyhow, long story short.
What happened?
Pues de repente dijo, pues ya no te amo.
Yeah.
Se acabó el amor.
Wow.
Just like that.
And how long were you with him?
Pero no vamos a hablar de él porque no se lo merece.
But was it a long relationship?
Dude, yes, it was a long relationship.
Were you heartbroken?
Oh, yes. I was heartbroken.
Really?
It was bad. It was bad.
So you said, I need to get out of Houston then.
I got with the rebound. That didn't work out. Ladies, if you're listening, don't get with a rebound. It's not going to work.
The first guy you meet, right?
It's just going to be
the first guy that buys you a beer, you know what I mean?
Ya, con este me quiero.
Yeah.
Pero me regreso al Valle.
It's tough when they break your heart like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad. It took some time to fully recover. But you live, you learn, right? And
you move on.
And so I moved back to the Valley and I said, I'm never doing media again. I did it for so many years.
But that was the reason you moved out of Houston,
and my dad,
breakup.
The breakup, but several things were happening. My dad was also diagnosed at that time with prostate cancer. So my mom was like, hey, you know what? I think it's time for you to come home. We need
closer.
We need to regroup. We don't know where this is going. And so I said, you know what? I think it's time. I needed to connect with come back and just reconnect with a strong support system, and which is your parents, your friends. So
you sent a resume to Channel 5 or what? And then
so I come back and I'm like, I don't want to do media anymore. I really need to explore other things. And I have a background. I have a bachelor's in advertising, right?
Okay.
So I said, okay, well, let me try, doing something different. Rock, Every application was getting denied. I couldn't find a job anywhere. Again, non-media related, right? I went to the mall. I dropped off my resume in every store you can imagine in the mall. Oh, no, you don't have enough experience in retail. You don't have... I'm like, what? Are you even reading my resume, woman?
You probably could have sold a lot of clothes for them.
Oye, mensa, te puedo vender aquí.
Yeah, no, they hire their friends.
Right?
Yeah.
So, oye, pues the savings was,
Yeah, it was depleting. And this was like 2012, 2013, somewhere
This
around
was 2017.
2017,
2018,
okay, just recently.
Yeah. So, my mom was like, pues, aplica ya las noticias. Aquí están varios. Está Telemundo, Univision Channel.
Yeah.
So, right?
Way to go, Mom.
And I was like, no, not the media world anymore.
That's all you know.
Dude, what? That's all you know, but... Dude, if you worked in media for many years, there's also the dark side to it. I was just like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
So here I am sending my resume at 2 a.m. to the former news director, Jenny Martinez, who has been an institution for journalists here in the Valley. She's recruited some of the best talent. No estoy hablando de mí. Estoy hablando de los originales. Polo Sandoval,
Yeah, he's at
Ripley,
CNN.
Todos los OGs que te puedas imaginar. Erica Pharr, I mean, you name it. All these guys.
A lot of them have gone to big networks.
And they were all under Jenny Martinez, right? Older lady, amazing lady. And I submitted my resume and she emails me back. And I was like, whoa, there's a reply. I'm just amazed because nobody was calling me back.
Yeah.
So, hey, kiddo, are you in my resume had my Houston address. Are you in Houston or are you in the Valley? I'm in the Valley. Okay, well, can you swing by at 8 a.m? I'd love to meet you. Okay.
All right.
And so here I go. My demo was nothing but entertainment. You can imagine you're meeting with somebody that's all about
News.
journalistic, to the core. And I'm over here doing an interview with like Grupo Sólido and
Yeah.
and many applications. She received many applications. They were trying to hire the first bilingual reporter for KRGV, which was always been an English-speaking station. They were working behind the scenes to launch their first Spanish newscast. And they were looking for a bilingual reporter. So I get a call back a couple of weeks later, and she says, you have the job, kiddo. And so when I got paired with my videographer, because reporters had to work closely with a videographer, he said, you know why you got the job? And this guy had been there for years. Matter of fact, he was Jenny's camera guy when she started back in the day. Her and Will Smith were both.
Was it Castellan?
Raul Castellan and
I remember him.
Tim Smith and, all the originals.
Yeah.
Jenny Martinez. So my camera guy was Jenny Martinez, camera guy, when she was a reporter back in the day. He said, Yuri, you know why Jenny gave you the job? I said, no, why is that? Because he said that from all the people, young ladies and guys too, that applied for that position, she said that through your eyes, she saw so much sadness that she said, she's the one that needs the job the most. And she's the one that's not going to fail me. She's going to work hard. Can you believe that I was already displaying that through an interview without even knowing? I needed the job so bad. And she recruited, let me tell you this, people that are in network right now that are way more qualified in the news area, right? And she said, nope, Yuri needs it. Her eyes, her interview, what she said, she needs the job the most out of everyone. So I know she's going to work.
Ambition and hunger and all that. Passion, you want to get it. Yeah, you want to win. That'll make it.
Hey, brokey, heartbroken.
Yeah. What do you think of the news nowadays? I mean, it's changed so much.
Dude.
I mean, you don't even know what to believe sometimes.
News was a blur. So, again, I signed a contract. I'm extremely happy. I'm doing the morning shift. So I'm going in at 4:15 a.m. for 4 years. 4:15.
And what time did you have to get up?
Like at 3:30.
Okay.
And so by 4:15, you're in the newsroom and you're already, discussing with your producer where you have to be that morning, right?
Damn, yeah.
And if there's breaking news, forget about your story. Your story's going to the noon newscast. But we covered everything. I mean, I covered a pandemic for an entire year. 2020.
So you were there during COVID and stuff?
During COVID, dude. Reporting with those long microphones, because if you were interviewing somebody, you have
6 feet.
you had to have. Oh, and
That was
God!
crazy.
Oh, and God forbid you were close to someone on air, and the microphone was too close. Oh my God, the lines would go crazy. People calling into the newsroom.
It was crazy.
It was a blur, man.
And then being locked in your house, you can't go anywhere. And if you do, you can get arrested. That was real, like, authoritarian, like another world, another
Dude,
country.
Everything was just crazy.
Yeah. You were considered an essential, so you had to be out there working. You had that paper. Did they give you that paper to work?
I was working, but I still didn't have access to the vaccine. So I was working without the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get it?
I did.
Yeah? But did you get anything while you were working without it?
I got COVID when I was on the job.
Yeah, but without the vaccine or with the vaccine?
Without.
Without. Yeah.
Without. It was still not available for me, right? Remember, it was rolled out by groups like the elderly and people with
obese and the people with underlying health conditions and stuff like that. Yeah,
I worked throughout COVID the entire time. And Hurricane Hannah, that was insane too. The freeze. I was working as a reporter during the
when
freeze.
the whole that place,
dude,
we weren't ready for that,
bro. Yo creo que lo cubrí todo. I think I covered every story that you can imagine in
disaster,
the Rio Grande Valley.
Yuri.
Todo el pedo. Oye, but I will tell you something. I learned so much. I understand that there's always that perception that the press is the enemy, but I have so much respect for young journalists really, really, really trying to, ask the right questions, ask the hard questions. Somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the news editor, right? To decide what goes on and doesn't go on.
Right. So the way it works, when I was a reporter, show up, right? I get assigned a location. I cover the story. You have to report back to the newsroom. Then we had to pitch to Mrs. Jenny Martinez. Whiteboard in front of all your colleagues, in front of all the other reporters. You have to pitch at least 3 to 4 stories. So ahí vas, enfrente de todos. Story idea number 1, and you have to really convince your news director on what's the value to the viewer. If someone's watching this story, ¿por qué les importa? What's the value to it? If it doesn't have a value, if it's just a ribbon cutting, you really have to sell me on this story. Most of the time, my stories would get killed.
Yeah.
All 3 stories would get killed. All 3 pitches. So ahí estás. Oh my God, buscando a ver qué está pasando. ¿Dónde puedo encontrar algo? But then you start building relationships in the community and people start tipping you. People start calling you for story ideas. And that's why it's critical that reporters have a good, solid foundation and communication with elected officials, with residents in the community, with everyone,
I honestly, they have to be not just have a good, relationship, but they have to set their certain grievances aside. Like if a reporter is
got to be non-biased.
Yeah, well, if a reporter is interviewing an elected official that he hates and he supports the other one, then it becomes like, let me see how I can hurt you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what it's been like nowadays. Instead of just trying to get good answers to good, they'll decide to ask questions about something that'll make them look bad. And then they report or they interview, somebody that they like. They make them look nice.
Are you talking about national or local?
National, national and stuff like that. I mean,
national is very different.
But local, I noticed that on the local because it gets fed by the network, and some of those network reports that come up on the local news are just like the national stuff. So the local people in certain markets they end up seeing what the national news is pitching. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just wish they'd be a little more
Yeah.
like, hey, you know what? We want answers to what's going on. We don't want, I don't know.
And I think this is why your news director, just like we have a radio program director, I think your news director has to have has to really understand that. No opinions in this story, right? It's this, both sides, the official, the reporter leaves his or her opinion out, and you let the viewer decide. Non-biased journalism. But I never really covered political stories. Mine were always more like...
No, hombre, ahorita está en caliente ese pedo.
No. Yo cubrí mucho comunidad. I covered a lot of community outreach. I did a lot. And it really allowed me, since this was my first job moving back to the Valley, because remember, I left in 2005. Era una niña de 18 años. I was 18. Mm-hmm. So this was me really working my butt off to land my next job, because no one has been like, oh, I know Yuri, we were friends in high school here. Dude, I've had to work my ass off.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And sometimes it's, I'll have people comment at some of my stuff like, hey, te crees muy, and I was like,
nobody knows everybody's background. Yeah.
I want to know someone that's been working at 4 a.m. Like, again, my shift as a reporter, man, it was towards the end, I felt it was taking a toll on my health, because it's just not normal for somebody to wake up at 3:30, be in the newsroom by 4:15, and then watch this. I was done with the morning newscast in English, and then I would switch to the Spanish. Same story. Pero ahora vamos a hacerlo en español.
Mm-hmm. So,
wow. It was insane.
How long were you there?
Going on 4 years.
4 years. So you went through COVID. So what year did you decided? Now we're talking about the politics and all that. Now you just threw yourself into the city thing, right?
Está bien.
Ahí está la política y todo también, ¿verdad? But you went from KRGV to the city of Pharr. Like, did you decide that you didn't want to be there anymore, or did you say, you know what, they've given me a better opportunity over here? Or
I think it was a combination of, again, COVID was still kind of lingering there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The morning shift was just brutal on me. My news director, and Jenny retired, by the way. So Jenny retired, and then
somebody else came in.
And he did want to offer, a couple of years, extend my contract. But again, as a reporter, you're visiting a lot of city municipalities, school districts, health systems, nonprofit organizations, because you're doing these stories daily. So again, you start building relationships. And so there's an interesting shift that we're seeing in city government right now, because slowly they've identified that, how do they get the word out to their residents with projects happening? Whether it's capital improvement projects, an event, an initiative, or anything that. So at that time, I'd been working on a couple of stories with the city of Pharr, and they were trying to find a news director or a media director, which is the spokesperson for the city of Pharr. But they were trying to find somebody that could push the message on all the projects they were doing in English and Spanish, and really get that message across. And I feel that they weren't getting the message across. You would see flyers here and there, but they wanted more than the press release. Mm-hmm. They wanted more than just a flyer on social media. So I was actually considering going back to Houston. So I remember Mayor Ambrosio Hernandez was like, "Are you going to go back to Houston, young lady?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm kind of debating it. My heart has healed." Mm-hmm. But he said, you should explore city government. You have the knowledge, you have the background. It's almost like being a reporter, but you're no longer being a reporter throughout the entire region. Mm-hmm. You're being a reporter for one city because mm-hmm. you're working internally. And I was like, well, sure. I do stories every day, but this is just going to be stories at a city level.
Mm-hmm.
I think I want to explore this.
And if a news reporter wants to do a story with the city, they contact you, and you're
Now they come to me.
Yeah.
And I know the questions they're going to ask.
Yeah.
So there's just no way that what I'm doing now. So yes, I took the job. I started working for them in October of 2021.
Okay.
And I feel that there's no way that the role that I'm doing now with the city, if I didn't have obviously the news background, I mean, forget about the radio comes into play when we do media buys for events and all of that, which is great. Mm-hmm. But with my reporter background, it's been easier for me to navigate through this role in city government.
Yeah.
For sure. And you said, well, you know, la política. Dude, tell me one place that doesn't have politics.
I know.
Anywhere.
I've been around.
Todo. Like, they're always like...
todos los pueblitos hay algo, you know.
But everyone always says like, oh, city government's very political. Everything is. Mm-hmm. I have friends that work at restaurants and, oh, no, it's very political because of this. Everything is so political now.
Yeah.
It's a matter of just really crafting your craft, understanding what you're doing, and just navigating the system sin meterte en problemas, no te metas con nadie, stay in your lane, and just try to do your job the best you can.
You know, Pharr, like, you all had to go through all that expressway, interchange, construction for years. It's like it never ended because they did it the first time and it lasted like a couple of years and then they had to do it all over again. How did you all like...
Oye, márcalos los de TechStart. Esto es un TechStart.
Well, it's almost done. It's almost done, I think. But man, you all went through some pain with that. I mean, it was crazy because it affects the businesses around the area, you know, there, because people le sacan la vuelta, you know what I mean?
But once it's done, it's really going to alleviate.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of projects happening, and not only in Pharr, in the entire region.
Pharr goes all the way to like Las Milpas and past Las Milpas and
Yes,
up to, does it go all the way to Military Highway?
Yeah, so it's south central north. I live in the central portion of it, but 80,000, a little bit over 80,000 residents.
I remember when Pharr, San Juan, and Alamo were like one school district, and they still are.
Yeah.
But it was just like one PSJ. That was it. And then
Tri-City.
And now they've got all these schools, and Alamo has their school, San Juan has their school. I remember one New Year's Day, I woke up and I was like, what in the world? A fire at Mott's cash.
Oh my God.
Mott's
dude.
building materials. That was crazy. You woke up New Year's Day to that. Después de New Year's Eve celebration.
And we have to be there. We have to be there because it's a major fire happening. In City of Pharr jurisdiction. As a spokesperson, my responsibility is to make sure that I rally my troops. In other words, making sure that the reporters are all stationed in the same area, making sure that our fire chief, you know, has updates for them every hour, and making sure it's the same spot. In other words, you don't want just different information, right, being gathered. It's almost like a press conference, right? You have to make sure they're all at the same place at the same time for updates. If not, everybody's just getting information from different sources, and you want this information to be coming down the pipeline from one person. Mm-hmm. Ya te imaginarás, yo ahí bien cruda.
Yeah, todos.
Con confetti in my hair.
Apenas iban costado y ya estaba sonando el phone. Ingao. That's crazy. Yes. But man, they've made a big comeback. I mean, what they've done with
those guys
Mott's
are
building
great,
materials.
Man. That family
they made
is
that
awesome.
little area, that little office space and stuff, and un salon and all that. So, and they're really cool dudes. So
they're awesome. They're awesome. Yeah. And their new buildings are beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's awesome to see a mom and pops, just the evolution of where they are now. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Something I notice about the city of Pharr también is they're always recognizing the veterans, you know, like the Memorial Weekend and then Veterans Day, you all have a parade.
We do the Veterans Day parade.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think there's, no, I don't want to disclose this, but there's a lot of other projects in the making currently through our city manager for veterans. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. I am un mosquito.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I mean, there's just so many events, Rock. I mean, we stay busy. Forget about the part of a reporter trying to come to us to cover a story. The daily.
Hub Fest is another big one y'all have.
It's been rebranded to the Avocado Fest.
The Avocado Fest.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Hub Fest is no longer a thing, but we've revamped it.
What was that?
So, you know that Pharr has an international bridge, and it's the number one bridge for crossings in produce.
Okay.
Right? Verduras, aguacate, cebolla, todo eso.
Órale.
And electronics too.
Sí.
Not only fruits, but it's really like a commercial crossing bridge, right? And so 80% of the avocados here in the nation come in through the Pharr International Bridge.
Okay.
Right? And so I think the city was like, you know, it's such an important product, right? It's sold everywhere. I mean, the amount of avocados that people purchase and eat during Super Bowl is
Guacamole.
It's insane,
Yeah.
right? And so we wanted to be proud of that, but we also want to tie it back to the bridge and just kind of educate our community. Why not be proud of the avocados, el aguacate? It's coming in through your Pharr International Bridge. Let's celebrate this. So the Hub Fest got rebranded to the Avocado Fest.
And that's around February, right? Or what month does that come
It's
out?
October.
October.
So
Okay.
so Hub Fest used to, I think April. So we shifted to, the weather's a lot better in October. It's an outdoor event.
Fall and spring, yeah.
Yeah.
And then right after that, you have La Posadas too.
Yeah.
So you stay busy during the fall and winter area, well, the fall area, because winter doesn't start till January 20th.
We stay busy all year. I mean, the
Yeah.
Avocado Fest brought in 20,000 people last year. And then you have your Winter Wonderland. And then you have your ball drop, right? That's all happening in the fall. But come January, you have the State of the City with the mayor, the State of the City address with the mayor. That's a lot of logistics, a lot of production that's happening behind the scenes. And then everything else that's happening. There's always something happening. Our small business community is growing, so there's always a ribbon cutting. There's always a groundbreaking happening with our Pharr Economic Development Corporation, which is your bigger chains, you know.
Yeah.
So there's always something happening.
Yeah.
And then on a smaller scale, every department, you know, we have 25 departments in the city of Pharr. Your smaller departments, they all have their little events. Whether it's the firefighters having like a, you know, national awareness week for firefighters or fire prevention week.
Yeah.
And then, you know, finance is doing a different event on,
You stay busy, big time.
and then PD, the amount of events they have on community outreach. And
Did you say P. Diddy?
no.
What was it?
PD.
Oh, P. D'ing.
Yeah. So this is so then you have
I thought you said P. Diddy. When I
no. PD. So all the
And
events.
P. D'ing. So you mean policing?
Your police department.
Yeah.
So all the events happening under them. You know.
Yeah.
So
No, they've
it's-
always been very active.
it's-
the police there and
It's nonstop. I
Yeah.
get asked like, "Oh, are you more relaxed now in city government because in news, you know, you were always going 100 miles an hour."
hell
I'm like,
no.
I'm going 100 miles an hour. The only difference is I'm wearing heels
Yeah.
in city government.
Wow.
As a reporter, I'm wearing my sneakers out in the field, but we stay very busy. And then our mayor is just, you know, just always has an idea, always has something like pushing the envelope. And I'm like, somebody needs to deactivate his TikTok because he has so many ideas. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're getting these from TikTok, aren't you? Yeah, but he's been great.
Yeah.
He's been great.
Hey, he's in the medical field, right?
Yeah, he's a pediatric surgeon. So,
Yeah.
you know,
He's like is he like the first ever pediatric surgeon or
Well, I know
person
for a
in the
very
medical
long-
field that's been a mayor, right? Or something?
Yeah.
Wasn't he like the first one? It'd be cool to talk to him one day.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have to bring him over.
Bring him over. Yuri.
Mayor, by the way, I forgot to ask you permission to be on the Rock Show, but no, but he's been great. He's been very supportive and just have a lot of creative freedom. I have a department of 12, so young guys, video journalists. You know,
Do you have a podcast as well? Or-
we started the podcast
Okay.
a year ago.
So all the people the citizens can just look at the podcast and you
Yeah.
inform them on whatever you need to inform them.
The Pharrcast.
Yeah.
So the Pharrcast was just another way of, you know, having our directors go on the Pharrcast and talk about what they do because our residents sometimes they don't know, like, pues qué hacen in Public Works? Who's a director? What do
Yeah.
they do? So you need to have
Transparency.
these faces in front of our residents, you know? So there's 12 people in the media department and they're always.
And then you put the city council meetings on the Facebook and all
Yeah.
over the place. You see everything. Everything's pretty transparent nowadays.
So we're responsible for recording those, archiving those, because obviously they're public records, and so we archive them. Just so many things.
There's a lot of work.
We do the
And-
press releases, the media advisories, the
Yeah.
press conferences, the videos you see on YouTube, on Facebook, the Pharrcast. When there's invitations from, radio stations or the news outlets, when they want us in their studio to promote an event, we'll make arrangements for that. So we stay busy.
Yeah, Yuri, I appreciate you coming to the show. You have an amazing energy, and you have an amazing journey too. I mean, all the way to Houston. I never left the Valley. But it takes guts to just jump and go to a big city and try to make something of yourself in a big city. It's not easy.
It was
and
tough.
it takes guts, and it takes a lot of perseverance. And now you've got it here in the city of Pharr.
We'll have to do episode 2.
Yeah.
To talk about all the crazy things that happen in Houston. That's just a glimpse.
yeah.
That's
Hell
just
yeah.
a glimpse. But can you imagine the amount of things that you and I can be on the same page?
H-Town, because we're in radio, yeah.
Yeah, we get exposed to so much. But
And there's always a party.
todas las cosas secreto las hicimos en el segundo podcast.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Yuri.
you,
God
Rob.
bless you.
You're awesome.
Asústame
Thank you.
one time.